Welcome to this webinar from One World Training. This webinar is about the benefits from the ITIL 4 practices. If you have completed the ITIL 4 foundation course and certification, you would recollect that in ITIL 4 there are 34 practices. And of the 34, 15 were covered in that course. We will be going through those 15 practices for you to understand the target audience for each of those practices and also the benefits of understanding those practices and benefits of applying those practices. That will allow you to dig deeper into any of those practices that you would like to attend those trainings and obtain certification by passing those exams. We would like to first acknowledge Axelos and PeopleCert as we have used their information in this recording. About One World Training. We are a global training and consulting company having offices in the USA, UK, the Netherlands, India, Malaysia, United Arab Emirates, South Africa, and many other countries globally. We provide training in information technology, business management, project management, ISO standards, GDPR, and many other topics for individuals as well as organizations. We deliver courses in 5 different ways. Number 1, they can be public classrooms, or number 2, online, that is virtual from home or work for you. Number 3, e-learning, which is self-paced. 4, a mix of e-learning along with support when you need. And 5, at the user's location on-site for private and government organizations. One World Training is also authorized and endorsed by leading global professional bodies. And you can see some of those logos towards the bottom portion of this slide. For example, we offer, on behalf of PeopleCert, we offer not only the ITIL courses, but also Prince2, projects in controlled environments, and then Prince2 Agile, the Agile version of Prince2. Then we also have Agile Shift, the transformation certification towards agility for an organization and its individuals. MSP, Managing Successful Programs. MOR, Management of Risk. MOP, P is for Portfolios. MOV, V for Value. P3O, Project, Program, and Portfolio Offices. And also, through PeopleCert, we have the Service Desk Institute certifications such as Service Desk Analyst and Service Desk Manager. Then we also have the other PeopleCert certifications such as Scrum and Lean IT and the Six Sigma certifications through IASSC and PeopleCert. And then we also have the Exim certifications and the PMI certifications such as PMP, CAPM, and others. We are also an Axelos consulting partner, meaning an ACP, for performing ITIL and P3 and 3 capability and maturity assessments. What that means is Axelos have their own maturity models for ITIL and project program and portfolio management. And One World Training is authorized by them as a consulting partner to perform maturity assessments on businesses who are interested in that. About the speaker, about myself, my full name is Muralidhar Gadam. In short, Murali. I'm an accredited trainer. I'm certified in many areas. I'm a consultant as well and a content developer for many courses such as ITIL 4. I'm an ITIL 4 master, so covering almost all ITIL 4 courses and certifications. PMP as well, the project management professional. Prince2, project in controlled environments. Prince2 Agile, MSP, managing successful programs. Scrum, Verism, which is value-driven, evolving, responsive, and integrated service management for the digital age, that is, and also COBIT, control objectives for IT. And I worked for many years in many industries, in Fortune 200 organizations, worked with people in several countries on-site, such as in the USA, Western Europe, in the Benelux region, UK as well, Canada, India, Southeast Asian countries, and Australia. I'm a computer engineering graduate. I'm a bachelor's in that. I also certified as a corporate trainer as well as a coach that helps me to deliver trainings and guide individuals towards their career growth and certification options and selections. Because of my varied industry experience, I'm able to deliver trainings in various areas, particularly in IT service management, software development and support. I've had good experience. I've had good experience in project management, program management, agile areas, and digital transformation as well. We see my picture here as well as some of the digital badges I have obtained through my certifications over these years. And these are still valid and active. Before we go into the subject, into the webinar, just to make you recollect the concept of the ITIL for practices. You might recollect, as seen in this picture on the right here, ITIL 4 has 5 components within its SVS, or the service value system. And we see practices is one of them. And we also have the continual improvement, which is the 7-step methodology or model or approach for improvement. Then we have governance, and then we have the 7 guiding principles. And then in the core, in the middle, we have the service value chain with the 6 value chain activities from ITIL, which an organization does from an ITIL perspective. Of course, an organization will do hundreds or even thousands of activities, but in ITIL, we have defined, or Axelos and PeopleCert have defined, 6 activities, such as planning, improvement, design and transition, obtain or build, deliver and support, and engage. So this SVS takes an opportunity or demand and delivers value through products and services. So what is a practice? It is a set of organizational resources designed for performing work or accomplishing an objective. You might recollect this from your ITIL Foundation training if you have done that. While in ITIL V3, the concept of processes were there. For example, there were processes for change management, incident management. But in ITIL 4, we have practices which are beyond processes, meaning they don't not only have processes within a single practice, but there are other things such as the people structure and the people element. And we also have the partners and suppliers dimension, and we also have the value streams, processes, of course, and then the information and technology dimension. Therefore, practices are the processes and value streams plus the remaining 3 dimensions of ITIL 4. And you might again recollect that there are 34 practices in ITIL 4. 14 of them are general management practices, which have come from various industries, and whereas there are 17 service management practices, which have come particularly from IT service management and service management. And there are 3 technical management practices, making it a total of 34. In the ITIL Foundation course, there were in particular 15 practices covered. Of the 15, 7 of them are covered rather more detailed, not completely in depth, but yes, more detailed than the remaining 8. And in this webinar, we're going to touch on 15 of those practices. And you will get to know the target audience for each of those practices and what are the benefits of attending trainings on those practices. Depending on your own work area and your aspirations for the future, you might prefer some of those practices to deal with, to get into training and certification on those courses, I mean. So those 15 are broken into 4 general management, 10 service management, and 1 technical management. And we will see that complete list shortly. The practice certification exams in ITIL 4 are of 2 types. On this slide, we see particularly the ITIL 4 practitioner certification information. So for example, it could be any of these 15 practices listed towards the right in the light blue box. So for example, you could certify in ITIL 4 practitioner service desk, or ITIL 4 practitioner incident management, or any of the remaining, depending on your own work area and your aspirations. These exams are short. These are 30 minutes each. Training usually is a 1-day live training. We have e-learning recorded versions as well, which is a bit shorter than the live trainings. And if you're writing the exam in a language other than your spoken language, the system would detect that based on your profile and give you 38 minutes, which is 25% additional time beyond the 30 minutes. The exam is short, as I said, therefore only 20 multiple choice questions, no negative marking, 1 mark per question, and you need to score at least 13 correct answers to pass, which is 65%. So make a note of those 15 in the right box here: service desk, incident management, problem management, service request management, monitoring and event management, change enablement, release management, service configuration management, IT asset management, I jumped to IT asset because deployment management comes from the technical practices, whereas the remaining that I went through are from the service management practices. We also have number 12, which is a service management practice, service level management, that is, and the remaining number 11, continual improvement, 13, relationship management, 14, information security, 15, supplier management, are the general management practices. So as I said before, 10 service management practices, 1 technical management practice, 4 general management practices make up these 15 ITIL 4 base practices. Of course, there are a total of 34. For now, you can obtain certificates in any of these 15. Also, some people might prefer a bundled exam. They might want to combine 5 certifications in a single training and certification exam. Those are also available from PeopleCert, and we have the trainings from us as well, from One World Training, including e-learning as well, depending on your preference. We also have bundled, for example, you could attend a live training as well as you also get access to the e-learning as well. So we have various options available for you as you prefer. These are known as practice bundle certifications. There are 3 bundles from PeopleCert. And the certifications are called ITIL 4 specialist certifications, not ITIL 4 practitioner anymore. The practitioner ones are for individual practices. The specialist ones for the bundled practices. 5-in-1 bundles, that is. So you could do the monitor, support, and fulfill bundle, or you could do the plan, implement, and control, or the collaborate, assure, and improve. These are longer exams. These are 90 minutes each for each of these specialist exams. Again, you get extra time if you're writing the language, if you're writing the exam in a language other than your spoken language. So you get 113 minutes, not just 90. There are more questions, 60, all multiple choice, no negative marking. Again, 1 mark per question. 39 of the 60 to pass the exam. Minimum 39, that is, which is again 65% at least. The monitor, support, and fulfill includes the service desk, incident, problem, service request, monitoring, and event management. These are closely related to each other, so they're in a single bundle. Similarly, the plan, implement, and control include change enablement, release management, service configuration, deployment, and IT asset management. Then we have the collaborate, assure, and improve bundle, which is continual improvement, service level management, relationship management, information security, and supplier management. Depending on your own aspirations or your own work needs, you could choose any of these bundles or all of them. Why not? All 15 practices individual or all 3 bundles. They're all the same. You will cover 15 either way. Just a little bit more on the exams, be it the specialist bundled ones or the individual practitioner ones. The questions are all multiple choice, so there is no negative marking. It's a closed book exam online at the PeopleCert site. It is invigilated by their proctor and recorded on video. The results are usually out within 2 business days. You do get the tentative results immediately once the exam is submitted. But the final results are published in about 2 business days. Most of the questions are the standard multiple choice, 4 answer choices given, and you need to select one of them. There may be some negative ones, meaning the question will have a negative connotation. Very few such questions. For example, a question could be, which of the below is not a correct statement? So it has got a negative connotation. And list questions are essentially, you'll be given 4 answer choices. You need to select 2 of the 4 as the correct answers. And then you get another set of 4 answer choices, which will be a combined answer, mixing those 2 that you selected as correct. So list means 2 of the 4 answer choices need to be concluded as the correct answer. The exams are based on the Bloom's taxonomy of learning and testing, which has 6 levels of learning, thinking, and testing. The exams are at level 2 and 3 particularly. Level 2 is an understanding level, which means you definitely need to overcome level 1, which is to remember all the concepts, memory recall, that is. But level 2 is more understand them rather than just memorizing them. And level 3 is about application of the concept. So the questions are a mix of level 2 and level 3, meaning whether you understood the concepts well, or can you also apply some of those concepts in reality? Some of the ITIL exams go to level 4 and level 5. And level 4, that is not level 5. Level 5 and level 6 are not covered in any of the ITIL exams. So for example, the DITS, the Digital and IT Strategy exam, does have the level 4 questions. It's part of the assignments that you will do as part of the training. This is the overall ITIL 4 certification scheme, which is quite wide. The ultimate one is the ITIL Master, which is definitely an exciting one to obtain. You have got you covered with all certifications that you need to obtain the master certificate. The bottom one, starting point, is ITIL Foundation. That's a prerequisite for doing any of these practice exams and certification. Any of those 15 practices individually or the 3 bundles, either way, you need to finish the ITIL Foundation first. And once you have done the foundation plus any of the 3 bundles or any 5 practice certificates, individual ones, and the Create, Deliver, and Support, which is also shown here, you automatically obtain the ITIL Practice Manager certificate. There is no exam, therefore, for the Practice Manager certificate. Now, just one more additional point here. The Practice Manager can also be obtained not only by doing any of the 5 from the 15 practices or any one from the 3 bundled practices, but you can even, in your selection for the 5 practices, you can even pick up either the extension module, such as the Business Relationship Management or the IT Asset Management Specialist ones as well. Note that the extreme left items, the acquiring and managing cloud services and sustainability in digital and IT, are excluded when you are selecting the practices for the practice manager qualification. So leaving those 2 at the extreme left aside, all the remaining 15 practices or the 3 bundled practices, plus the BRM, Business Relationship Management, Specialist IT Asset Management, doing any of those 5 will fetch you the practice manager. And of course, you need to do the Create, Deliver, and Support as well. The other one, the middle column here, the Managing Professional, the MP one, is automatically obtained when a candidate has completed Foundation, then the Create, Deliver, and Support, High Velocity IT, Drive Stakeholder Value, and Direct Plan and Improve. To obtain the ITIL Strategic Leader, on the extreme right there, ITIL Foundation is mandated, plus Digital and IT Strategy and Direct Plan and Improve. So you can see that Direct Plan and Improve is common to both the Managing Professional and Strategic Leader. Similarly, Create, Deliver, and Support is common to Managing Professional as well as Practice Manager. The ones on the extreme left do not require ITIL Foundation, meaning the cloud one and the sustainability one. All certificates are valid only for 3 years. The best way to renew your certificate without having to write an exam is to obtain another ITIL certificate within the 3-year expiry. So for example, if I've done, let's say, ITIL Foundation and it's going to expire tomorrow, I could write ITIL Service Desk today, and passing that will automatically extend my ITIL Foundation by another 3 years from tomorrow, because I've obtained the ITIL Service Desk today, even though the Service Desk certificate will come in my email in a couple of business days. All the practice courses, be it the individual practitioner certificates for the 15, or be it the specialist ones for the 3 bundles, each bundle having 5 practices, the learning outcomes are the same, because every practice has the following topics covered in their practice guides, which are covered in our trainings, be it live trainings or e-learning. Now, just one thing, the practice guide that as I just mentioned is the reference guide for all these trainings and certifications. And when you purchase a training course from us, you obtain the exam voucher as well as the e-learning, depending on what you prefer, e-learning or live. And then the exam voucher can be used to access your practice guide. So when you attend those trainings, we will explain how you can use your exam voucher to not only book your exam on a specific date and time, but also access those practice guide for that training. Now, coming back to the slide, The concepts that are covered in all these practice courses are, first of all, the key concepts. Every practice has its own key concepts, which is a big topic. In fact, 25% of the training, I would say, is number one topic. The remaining 25% of the course is number two, which is to understand and apply also the key processes and the value streams of the practice. Number three, 4, 5, 6, and 7 are smaller modules. These 5 together take up about half of the curriculum in the training. So number 3 is about the roles and the team structure for the practice. Understand and apply as well, which means Bloom's level 2 and 3. And number 4 is just understanding the tools and automation recommendations. Number 5 is about what partners and suppliers can do for the practice. Can they perform some of the practice activities? For example, in release management, can they perform certain release management activities? Number 6 is ITIL has its own capability maturity model. We'll cover that in number 6 and in the training for the practice, and how a specific practice connects to that capability model through several criteria to be met to reach a certain capability level, such as 2, 3, 4, or 5. There is also level 1, but that is a lack of maturity of the practice. The maturity begins at level 2 only and goes up to 3, 4, and 5, 5 being the highest level of maturity. Number 7, the last topic in each of these practice courses, there are some general recommendations for the practice success. Just like in number 4, there are some automation recommendations. Now, this webinar, as I mentioned earlier, is about for you to understand for each of these 15 practices, what are the benefits from each practice, meaning what are the learnings you will obtain when you attend courses on each of these practices? What will you learn really? And secondly, who is the target audience for each of these practices, meaning who particularly will it benefit? Because it is not necessary that everybody will have to attend all these 15 practice courses or those 3 bundles combining these 15 practices. 5 practices in each bundle, that is. Some people might prefer, depending on their work life, they might prefer, for example, number 1, service desk, number 2, incident management, number 4, service request management, maybe number 5, monitoring and event management. And they could do a little bit more, for example, number 8, service configuration. I'm saying this because usually service desk personnel do perform incident management activities, service request management activities, sometimes even service configuration management, like logging or documenting some of those things, those information of service configurations, and maybe a little bit the monitoring and event management work as well. On the other hand, some people might prefer, they might be more into service focus. They might prefer number 12, service level management, and they might do relationship management, supplier management, number 15. And they might be looking into number 6, change enablement, and so on. So it all depends on individual preferences based on the nature of the work of individuals like you. So let's look into each of these in more detail so that you can make up a decision as to which practices are the ones you would need to get trained and certified in. And we are there to support you in your entire journey, in your ITIL journey and also other journeys for your growth and development. Now, what you see on the slide is the benefits you will obtain from attending any of the practice trainings, because what we see here are covered in every practice course. In every practice course, you will get to know the practice-specific concepts, such as what is the purpose of a practice? What are the various practice success factors? Usually there are somewhere between 2 to 4 PSFs or practice success factors in every practice, and also certain practice metrics. And of course, every practice has its own key concepts that will be covered. And we will see specifically what those are when I take you through individual practices. In each of these practice courses, you will get to understand the process workflows and for improvements in particular, how a practice can be set up and improved, and How we can use lean methods for improvement, meaning the value stream analysis concept is covered. Then in every practice, you will get to know what are the relevant roles for the practice and what should be the appropriate team structure. For example, in service desk, we have the service desk manager, and we have a service desk agent or analyst. And then how do you structure it? Can it be virtual? Can it be centralized, distributed, and so on? And then we have in every practice how the practice can be automated using certain tools such as workflow tools or knowledge management tools and so on, depending on the practice, and certain automation recommendations such as should we automate just that practice, or because practices usually don't work on their own, they work with other practices. Therefore, there should be consideration of multiple practices when defining automation options. And then we move on to, there'll be learning for you related to outsourcing. For example, if your organization decides to outsource the practice, what exactly can be outsourced? At least the entire practice cannot be outsourced, meaning the accountability for a practice can never be outsourced to a third party, because that will also always remain with the organization. But they can always outsource some of the activities, including certain key activities. Then you will also learn how to assess and enhance your practice maturity. Meaning, what are the various capability maturity criteria wherein you can assess at what level of maturity your practice is within your own organization, and then target improvements. For example, move release management practice from level 2 to level 3, or move incident management practice from level 3 to level 4, and so on. And lastly, not the least, you will get to know some key success recommendations for the practice, which are proven. And these are based on the ITIL guiding principles. For example, a recommendation could be that have a user and customer focus before thinking of targeting specific releases. You may want to look at critical releases first, and then if you go into release management practice, for example. Therefore, each of these practice courses will cover these topics definitely. And then we'll take a look at in each practice what specifically are covered. So now we begin our journey through those 15 practices, and I will be speaking about the target audience for each practice that will help you to decide the practice that you would prefer and like to attend training and go for certification, and also what you'll be learning in each of these courses, because that will give you a good bearing as to whether it will be beneficial for you or not. So this is the first one, the service desk. This is mainly for service desk managers, service desk agents who can also be called as user support agents. Now, I won't be going into explaining these roles. These are covered in the practice, but hopefully you'll get a general understanding of these roles here. And of course, all these 15 practices are also intended for anyone who is aspiring to get into a role in that practice. And also anyone who would like to become a practice manager or a practice lead or owner or a practice coach for a specific practice or multiple practices. So all of those individuals can target to attend the training and certification. And this is a sample certificate. So your name will appear here, and it'll mention the name of the practice, in this case, the service desk, and the issue date, and by when it'll expire. As I said, you can renew by writing another ITIL exam within the 3-year expiry period, or there are other ways and means. So when you come to a training, we'll explain that. This is a PeopleCert and Axelos certificate. So in addition to the benefits that I covered earlier, which is common to all 15 practices, in the service desk training, the following will be covered specifically. Normally, we tend to think of service desk as a group of people, but we'll be covering all the 4 dimensions: the information and technology dimension, partners and suppliers dimension, and the value streams and process dimension as well. Communication channels are a key aspect of the service desk. Those will be explained clearly. And omni-channel, meaning the integration of multiple channels so that users can connect with the service desk on other channels. Initially, they may come on email, they want to follow up on phone or through the app, and they don't want to repeat their story once again. Therefore, we need the omni-channel approach. And some general concepts such as service empathy and moments of truth will be covered as well. And you might have sometimes yourself experienced when you attempt to reach out a help desk or a service desk, there are certain considerations needed when a user is interacting with the human service desk staff, or when a user is interacting with technology service desk, such as a chatbot, and what are the challenges and what are the solutions there to overcome those challenges. And because service desk triggers many other practices, therefore it is important that the communications from the service desk go through the entire value stream, not just initially with the user, but whichever practice is touched, the communications need to flow continuously through the service desk into the entire value stream or into the various stakeholders of the value stream. So these are some of the key learnings you will get from attending this course. And of course, the general learnings which I highlighted earlier. Then we move on to incident management, the second one. Here, this course is quite valuable to incident managers and even major incident managers, the MIMs, technical specialists, because they work on incidents, service desk agents or analysts because they usually communicate about incidents or even handle them. And the product and service owners, you will see the product and service owners in most of these practices as a target audience, because they generally take part in the improvement of the practice. So in this case, for example, they can take part in incident review, by which they can improve the incident handling approach or the incident models. And they can even take part in communication during major or critical incidents. The learnings from this course which will benefit practitioners. Before we look at what an incident is, it'll be clarified what is normal service operation as compared to incident. And then we will take you through incident models. To handle different types of incidents, we need different models, different approaches, that is. Then the concept of major incidents, and certain concepts such as workaround and technical debt, which are also from the problem management area, like quick fixes rather than proper solutions that come from problem management, which is closely connected with incident management here. Then there are some key requirements in this practice, such as incidents need to be detected early. They need to be resolved quickly and effectively. And in complex situations, we need additional techniques such as swarming or the Kuhneman framework. There's also the shift left approach, and the incident prioritization becomes important in order to resolve incidents quickly and effectively. And then how to continually improve the practice. Certificate will show the practice name. Problem management. We do have the product and service owners here, like before. And they can, of course, take part in any of the activities of problem management. Then we have the problem managers and coordinators. These are specific roles in this practice. We have the configuration item owners. These are usually the people who own certain service components, and they would be looking at the complexity of their own component and whether they have created any root causes for incidents. Then we have the incident managers who would be interested in knowing the resolutions, and then the technical specialists who would be working on the problems to analyze them and to find out resolution. In the problem management course, you will be made familiar with the three phases of problem management, namely problem identification, problem control, and ending with error control. There's also the reactive problem identification, firstly, but better proactive identification of problems, even if there are no incidents. Then workarounds and technical debt, similar to incident management learning. An example of a technical debt could be people who are not skilled enough. They become a debt to the organization. It's not a good example, but it's a good example also because people will realize that they need to skill up. But generally, a good example is where software is being modified frequently, if you know about this, and it can cause problems in the software functioning because of frequent changes in an agile environment due to lack of proper testing. And therefore, that can create loopholes in the software and poor performance in the future. And that becomes a technical debt which need to be resolved by periodic cleaning of the software structure, the code structure and design without changing functionality. And that is called refactoring. Even old systems in a company can become technical debt, need to be replaced by modern systems. Known errors are the analyzed problems and problem models to handle different types of problems, such as database versus information security and so on, just like incident models, and then optimizing or improving the problem resolution and mitigation. Service request management is the next one. Typically, service request handling and the incident handling are performed by the service desk staff. Therefore, these practices generally come together in a single bundle: monitor, support, and fulfill. You might recollect that bundle. This one is particularly for the service desk managers and agents. Therefore, though it's a service request management practice, user support agents, product and service owner for improvement activities, technical specialists and technical team leads, because they could be the ones fulfilling those requests, meaning, for example, performing a deployment or some installation of software or whatever. Resource owners, they may have to approve certain resources to be given to a certain requester. Resource owners in general can be responsible for a lot of things. They may be even approver, or they may even be responsible for making sure their resource capacity. It could be, for example, a hardware resource or a software license resource. They need to ensure that those capacities, availabilities are in place. And ITSM tool consultants, particularly here, because service request, though they may be a service request tool, it should integrate with other tools also. A request might come in for a deployment of a certain software license, or a request might be for asking for a certain contract documentation. Therefore, the tool should promote all those functionalities, and this is where the consultants can be very useful for providing guidance and on the selection and implementation of the tools. In the service request management course, you will be made familiar with the various characteristics of service request. For example, it can be a request for access to a resource, or it can be a query, a general query. It can be a complaint, it can be an appreciation, and so on. And what is included, those what I just mentioned, those can be included in a service request. And characteristics can also mean that they need to be responded in a user-friendly manner, in a timely manner, in an efficient, effective manner. And they are requested by the user or their authorized representative, and so on. Therefore, service request handling requires several policies and guidelines. And every service request will have a life cycle from the time it is requested until it is completed and closed and resolved for the user. And it'll have to work with other practices. For example, if the incoming input is an incident-related input from a user, then the service request management will not be working on it. It should trigger the service desk practice, will trigger the incident management practice. And if the incoming input from the user is for a service request, then the service desk practice will trigger service request management practice. So you see, I'm bringing in three practices. It's always the service request practice, which initially obtains input from the user, and then it goes through the other practices as appropriate. Then we have request models for different types of requests, hardware, software, whatever. Request catalog as to what can be requested, and then how to document the request properly, the request handling procedures, that is. And they need to be improved periodically based on user feedback and proactive, innovative improvements such as automation and so on. Then we have the monitoring and event management practice. Large organizations typically who have large infrastructure for IT tend to have this practice as a critical practice. Here, the target audience can be several service and product owners who can take part in a lot of activities such as design inputs or service inputs, product inputs, stakeholder requirements, that is, and of course, the improvement initiatives, they come in. Then a lot of technical people will be involved when the event and the monitoring areas are defined and designed and implemented and so on. So these include typically service architects, designers, developers, testers, monitoring specialists, service validation specialists, meaning the testing specialist, and delivery operations managers. Uh, Account managers and project managers can come in to implement the practice, which can require a lot of effort. And account managers will keep the users and stakeholders informed. They may obtain sponsorship. Super users, because certain user inputs may be needed as to what kind of events they would like to prioritize. Business analysts will work with the users to obtain requirements and then solicit requirements from various stakeholders before the practice is designed. And the technology consultants can, of course, with their niche experience in this area, can prove to be very useful. So these are some of the target audience for this practice. The learnings in this practice would be the following, and that would be the benefits to the learners like you. There's a heavy dependency on proper service design. It should consider the various services and products that need to be monitored and need to be managed for their events. And there's difference between monitoring versus event management. There's also reactive monitoring and event management, and proactive as well. And the concept of polling frequency, should the events be polled continuously or with a gap? Because you can imagine if it is continuous polling, then it's going to use up the bandwidth of the network, for example, or even storage to document or record those informations from the events. There are various types of monitoring systems, such as in-house or procured ones, and so on. And there are different terminologies such as events, thresholds, alerts, and types of events. And for different types of events, there can be different models. And monitoring data is key before any action, before the event data can be filtered and it can be actioned. And therefore, the availability of the monitoring data is a key initial input. There is no lack of data as such in today's IT world, business world, but it's the challenge would be to how to use that data, meaning filter it properly before using the right data from that. Then it's important to detect and act on events, because a lot of information is coming in through the monitoring, but not all of them are really needed to take action on. Therefore, that's also essential. So these are some of the key things covered in this training. Then we have change enablement, which is, a big thing in many organizations. There can be anxiety among people who approve changes because they don't want to uh, face the consequences of failed changes, which can disrupt businesses big time. So therefore, this becomes an important practice to deal with in a sensitive manner or a proper manner with a right skill and knowledge for doing this. Nevertheless, this is made better with this course. So here we have usually the preferred, the audience who typically prefers this training would be change managers and coordinators, change authorities who actually approve the changes, product development team and technical experts, because in product teams, the product team members themselves can approve certain changes on their own. And there's less bureaucratic situations in product-based environments in order to be agile. And risk and compliance experts will be, of course, watching changes closely. And then product and service owners, they can also be the ones who take part in the change approvals and change requirements. Resource owners, they will have to, if they might own a specific application resource or a hardware resource, and they will ensure that their resources are not negatively impacted during a change. Or they might even highlight such things, things such as that their resource is also involved in a specific change if that was not detected by the others. And then, of course, customer representatives who will have their own expectations for changes. So generally, the resource owners and customer representative will also come in during the change approval and the change review and the closure. Therefore, this course will take you through the types of changes, such as normal, emergency, standard, and the change models, meaning the procedures for different types of changes can be set up. The meaning of the change authority. It is important to ensure timeliness and effectiveness of changes, to minimize the negative impact of changes, to ensure the stakeholder satisfaction, and to meet the governance and compliance requirements for changes. Release management. In today's agile world, there are more frequent releases than in the older traditional predictive world, where there would be one release for a software product, and that would be a major release having almost all the functionality of the software in large monolithic systems. And after that, maybe once in a while, a small change might come in. But now in today's world, changes are so frequent, releases, and therefore releases also so frequent. Usually in releases, we have the release managers and coordinators coming in, the product development team members, product and service owners, resource owners, and we have people such as information security specialists and sysadmins. They can come in particularly when executing the releases. Here, it's again another interesting course. It takes you into the basics of continuous integration, continuous delivery, and continuous deployment, and also the need to have different release models for different types of releases. For example, hardware versus software releases, or within software, we can have different platform releases. And the concept of push and pull releases. For example, if I have a commuting app and I cannot proceed with the app until I install an update, it means the update is being pushed on me. On the other hand, if I can skip the update for later on, it's more like a pull update for me. I can choose to pull it or do my install afterwards. And what are some of the guidelines for ensuring effective releases? Though the list looks small here, there's quite a lot that is covered under each of these topics in the training. We have service configuration management coming up now. Again, we can see here a good number of target audience here. This is about, this practice is about maintaining, of course, creating first and then maintaining accurate, up-to-date, reliable information about services and their components and relationships among those components and services. Therefore, we do have configuration managers and coordinators and configuration librarians showing a lot of interest in this course. And then, yeah, resource owners, practice owners, project managers, because they might come in to set up the configuration systems. For example, the configuration management system and the CMDB and so on. This is where consultants also come in quite a lot. The product and service architects would be needed. And then there are users of the configuration information who can provide the requirements as to what kind of information they would like to get access to whenever they need to, and the product and service owners. Here in this course, there's a lot of terminology such as configuration items, baseline configurations, which are approved configurations before any changes can be made with subsequent approvals. Then configuration models for different types of configurations. And every configuration item goes through a life cycle. For example, initially there is a requirements understanding for a specific component of a service, then it is procured and then assigned to somebody, and then so on, and then end of life, etc. Then configuration management systems and databases, CMS, CMDB. And there's a close connection between the CIs and the IT assets, but there is still a difference. IT assets are more about the financial value. Therefore, of course, almost all CIs would be IT assets because they will have financial value. But all IT assets need not be CIs, because it is not necessary that all IT assets are being currently used in a service and therefore had to be managed to run the service. For example, there may be certain IT assets lying in stock for repairs in the future, like a replacement items. They are not currently used for delivering a service. Therefore, they do not become a CI for that reason. Then it is important to do periodic configuration item verification, inventory, discovery. Discovery is automatic, inventory is manual. Then there can be periodic CMDB audits, which are more time extensive, resource intensive. And the configuration information has to be up to date, relevant. And there is no point in keeping too much of configuration information because that would cost effort, space in the database, and so on. Therefore, it is important to understand how much to populate with respect to configuration information. And the ITIL guideline principles can come in very handy when deciding to optimize the cost of such information. Now, having come so far, we have the other ones coming up. Deployment management, very closely connected with release management. In ITIL 4, deployment happens before release. Deployment is about moving service components into the desired environment, such as a live environment or a non-live environment. And once that is done, when the components have been moved, then the release happens, meaning make the service available for use to the users. So the target audience is a bit similar to the release management. The learnings can also be a little bit similar, but there are still some differences. No doubt the two practices work very closely with each other, deployment and release. Here in deployment management, the target audience are the deployment managers, the coordinators and practitioners of deployment, which can be individual technical practitioners who are deploying certain components into a certain environments, moving them, that is, not giving it for use to the users yet. That happens in release management. Service and product owners, service desk agents. And we have development team members and technical specialists, service desk agents or analysts, once again, engagement managers. Then now engagement managers, they can be useful during deployment planning because they might be in touch with maybe the sales people or with the customers directly, and they're engaging with those key stakeholders, and they can provide good inputs for the planning in terms of requirements for the deployments. For example, there could be confidentiality or information security requirements coming in through those channels. And delivery managers who can oversee the deployments by their practitioners and coordinators. System admins, infrastructure team members will also take part in deployments. Once again, some concepts are similar to release management, such as continuous integration, continuous delivery, continuous deployment. And then we have the concept of the environment. What is a deployment environment? Then the deployment model. So for different types of deployment, there can be a separate model. It's a repeatable approach to a specific type of deployment. For example, for hardware deployment, there could be a specific approach which can be repeated for all kinds of hardware deployments. By a model, what we mean is it can be a procedure, it can be a set of responsibilities and accountabilities, a certain escalation metrics, and so on. Certain templates for communication of deployment progress, all that can be part of a model. So when the term model is mentioned, be it incident model, problem model, release model, deployment model, change model, and so on, a model consists of procedures, responsibilities, matrices, and templates for communication, and so on. Then how to ensure effective deployments is another thing to pick up from this training. We have IT asset management. More and more organizations are focusing heavily on this with priority, particularly at the CIO level, CFO level. Therefore, the target audience is quite varied here and quite elaborate as well. You will see almost everybody from the organization in key roles coming in with interest in this IT asset management, the ITAM practice. IT asset managers and owners, IT asset custodians and analysts, IT asset register administrators. So yeah, once again, IT asset register administrator. So the meanings of these would be covered in the course itself. We also have license managers, procurement and contract managers and specialists, business analysts, accountants, financial analysts, portfolio managers, because they make decisions on services and investment decisions. So therefore, they would be having interest in this as well in terms of what kind of IT assets should be procured, the decisions to be made for them, the business cases, etc. And service delivery managers, auditors, external consultants, project managers who would be implementing the ITAM systems and practices, processes, etc. before they are made live for the internal employees, for the practitioners. Then we have service desk agents and leads who should also be familiar with what's going on in this area so that they can communicate to relevant stakeholders during incidents, etc. Then we have IT managers and coordinators and even IT developers, product owners, stockroom managers who maintain asset stock in their wherever, certain inventory rooms, etc. Compliance officers and auditors, they keep a close watch on IT asset usage, finances, controls, etc. Then government and vendor representatives because they may be supplying them. The government may have their own say in their IT asset requirements. So in this training, some unique benefits from the training in terms of learning, various types of IT assets, software, hardware, peripherals, IT asset attributes such as who is the owner, what is the value, and location, and so on. Asset register will maintain all this information. Every asset goes through its own life cycle from the initial request and then procurement, assignment, upgrade, end of life, etc. And therefore, different asset types may have slightly different life cycle approaches or models. They can be fine-tuned, that is the life cycle. Then just like the configuration item, verification, inventory, and discovery, we have the same here. Then similar to that, we have the audit as well for the IT assets. And similar to the configuration item information, even IT asset information need to be relevant and up to date. And therefore, continual monitoring of the IT asset utilization is needed because if certain IT assets are not being used, they may be reassigned or disposed of, sold, whatever, in the right way. Or it can be optimized. For example, there is no need to procure 100 software licenses if only 40 of them are going to be used. So there can be periodic checks on how many licenses are being used from those 100 procured. It's a less number, then some actions can be taken to minimize the wastage of those unused assets. Again, ITAM is highly subjective to regulation, particularly in the software area where some of the heavyweight software vendors have to be watched out for. Otherwise, there can be very heavy penalties for an unlicensed usage of their software. Continual improvement. This is coming from the third bundle. So far we have covered the monitor, support, and fulfill bundle, the first 5 practices. Then we covered the plan, implement, and control, the next 5 practices. Now we have the last 5 practices bundle, the collaborate, assure, and improve. So we begin with continual improvement. A good number of target audience for this course who can benefit. So product and service managers, service quality managers, all of these can focus on continual improvement. So intuitively, we can acknowledge that all these listed here will definitely be interested in this practice. Product and service developers and innovators, continual improvement managers and coordinators, practice managers of all other practices also, not only this practice, because any practice can be improved. Then the organization's leadership team, because their sponsorship is needed for a continual improvement culture, for a learning culture and all that, and sponsorship with funding as well for improvements. It cannot be, the funding cannot be normally part of the operations. There has to be additional funding for improvements unless the funding is already given as part of the operations. Then all service management personnel, everyone in a service organization is responsible for continual improvement. Therefore, this benefits everybody, the learnings from this practice. Consultants come in many times to provide advice and guidance on continual improvement. Remember, an improvement is deliberate. It is not a reactive improvement due to a complaint from a user or a customer. And customers and users of service, they also expect improvements and they also can contribute to improvement. Therefore, they're also a good target audience for this practice. This practice is also a very interesting one and very unique. It begins with why there is a need to continually improve. What happens if that is not done? One of the answers would be that businesses need to change proactively. Therefore, they need to continually improve. They need to sense the environment. And then next, how to record the improvements in a continual improvement log or register. Prioritizing them is needed. There can be several improvement suggestions, but not all of them could be done at once. Then the continual improvement model, which is a separate component in the ITIL service value system. The 7-step methodology, beginning with what is our vision, and then moving through where are we now? Where do we want to be? How do we get there? Take action. Did we get there? How do we keep the momentum? Then several organization characteristics are needed for continual improvement, such as this need to be embedded long term, not the short term. Continuous learning has to be promoted, a culture that is. Opportunities have to be captured in a timely way, not overlooked or forgotten. They need to be evaluated, incubated. Then ownership is needed for improvements. We need, in many cases, dedicated improvement managers. They should be focusing only on improvements. Of course, depending on the improvements, one improvement manager could be focusing on 3 improvements, but they should not be focusing on operational activities as a recommendation from ITIL, because then the focus on improvement becomes diluted, or focus on operations become diluted. Therefore, ownership is key. Resourcing and funding improvements. We cannot stress out the operations people by asking them to improve proactively if they don't have that bandwidth. Let's say 10 people are exactly needed to support operations. And if you ask the same 10 people to perform improvements, the operations will suffer. But usually there's a tendency in organizations or an expectation that the same 10 people will perform improvements also. It is possible. We are not denying that, but it should be done cautiously with the right leadership, sponsorship, telling people what is important in operations, what is important in improvement, so that the workload can be balanced. Service level management. Several people show interest in this practice as well. Some of the ITIL roles here are the service level managers, and even service owner is another role in ITIL for this practice. Product owners, they will show interest in this practice. Relationship and account managers, because they deal with the customer, with whom they are reviewing the service levels periodically. Supplier managers, the supplier managers deal with their third parties and monitor their service level achievements. Service assurance managers, for the same reason. Service financial managers, who will be able to decide the pricing on the customer's expectations for the service levels. For example, if the customer expects tighter service levels, there's a likelihood that the pricing will go up. Just imagine for a moment, customer expecting a 1-hour response time versus 1-minute response time. A lot more investment would be needed for that. Then we have product and service quality managers, who are watching out on the service level achievements of the services by the provider. Service architects and designers, technical experts, because they are the ones who will know whether those levels are achievable or not. Project managers, who can bring in for improvements in order to achieve certain service levels that are being missed out, which can also be done by the service owners or product owners as well. So in this training, we do cover a lot of things, such as the approach for defining service levels, how, what happens exactly when the customer meets the provider's team. So we have the customer representatives, the customer and the provider representatives. They come together, they start the discussion, and what happens after that. So that's what we will learn here. And eventually they come to a conclusion on what the levels should be. Mutual agreement on that, but many times it may happen that the customer came in with 100 things in their mind. Eventually they left the room after signing off only on maybe 50 of them. And of course, not bad, but therefore there should be periodic review of the service level needs and the achievements so that the customer can voice what else they need. And therefore, service levels closely related to utility of services, warranty, and experience as well of the customer and the users. It is important to measure the achievement of the service level and review periodically, make improvements, monitor the levels as well with the dashboards, live periodic dashboards, both live dashboards and periodic reports. And SLAs can differ from out of the box commercial off the shelf products versus tailored customized services. In out of the box services, customer will hardly have a say in their expectations for the service levels because they are preset, whereas in tailored services, customer will have a complete leeway on what they can expect. We move on to the next one within the list of 15 practices. It's relationship management. And the moment you think about this practice, relationship management can occur between anybody, between employees, between employee and a manager, between a provider and a consumer representative, external, internal stakeholders. It's not necessary that the relationship management happens only between a service provider manager and a customer manager or representative. Therefore, there is a large target audience for this as well, such as service level managers, service and product owners, business and customer relationship managers. Different organizations have different structures for managing relationships with different stakeholders, internal, external, regulatory, partners, etc. Account managers, supplier and procurement managers, relationship agents. For example, service desk members or agents are also relationship agents with their users who are calling in. Then we have internal compliance and audit team who could be the relationship liaison for regulatory authorities. Then service desk agents, team leads of teams to have proper working relationships with their team members and other teams. Organizational leaders, HR specialists, organizational culture consultants who can provide advice and guidance on improving relationship management or even building and maintaining them. The relationship management consultants, it's again another marketable business, isn't it? And then community leaders. For example, in a large organization that provides services, for example, if you take a commuting, a taxi or a cab commuting service, they have driver community leaders who engage with all the taxi or the cab drivers to make sure there is good communication between the service organization and all the drivers in terms of policies and sorting out their issues and all that. So here, again, a lot of interesting concepts such as that are covered in this course, such as types of relationships, individuals, teams, organizations. An interesting point that would be covered is how the IT team relationships in particular have evolved over several decades from the old world, possibly the 1960s or 70s, to now in the 21st century. And the service relationship journey, this is covered in more detail in the separate certification named Drive Stakeholder Value, which is a 2-day program, which is a totally separate certification. But we cover this briefly in this relationship management course. It's a 7-step journey beginning with engage. It's a journey between the customer and the provider. So they begin to engage with each other. And in fact, they explore the market. They explore each other's presence, and then they engage after that. And there is an offer, mutual offer, and then an agreement. Then there is onboarding of services. Afterwards, there's a value realization. And so those are covered in the service relationship journey. Then we have the stakeholder management concept, relationship models, how to manage relationships of different types. Again, it is up to you on how to define this, but this concept is explained. Then relationship management is a shared approach among individuals. There need to be shared values, for example, and relationship within the organization versus relationship with outside stakeholders. And again, with outside stakeholder, it can be a service relationship. For example, between an organization and its customer, provider and its customer, it's an external relationship. Again, between the provider and a regulatory authority is a non-service relationship, but there is still a relationship. And then within the organization, we have managers, employees, among colleagues, leadership, and other employees, and so on. We now have information security management, another critical practice in the modern digital world. With so much focus on this, naturally, we will have several interested stakeholders here, such as information security managers, CISOs, Chief Information Security Officers, risk managers, product and resource owners, business and IT team managers, service desk agents, who would also be checking certain information security aspects before they respond to users, just to make sure they are genuine, for example. Application developers, technical specialists, product owners, business and technology architects, executive leaders, consultants and auditors, incident managers. So, varied portfolio of interested parties and stakeholders for this practice. What will be covered in this course? First of all, information security characteristics, such as confidentiality, authentication, etc. Well, all these practice courses do cover the other things which are outlined in the very beginning. We will be covering the key concepts, the other things such as practice success factors, the purpose of the practice, the metrics of the practice, the tools and automation recommendations, role of third parties in the practice, the practice success recommendations, then we have the team structures and the roles of the practice. Then we have the various processes, the workflows and the activities of the practice, and capability model for the practice. Apart from that, what we are listing on these individual practice slides are specific terms and concepts that are being covered in each practice. Then in this practice in particular, in information security management, there'll be a realization about the difference between threat, vulnerability, and risk, and the importance of developing and managing information security policies and plans, mitigating information security risks, testing the security management plans, and embedding the information security approaches into the service value system, meaning, for example, every employee should know about the importance of this practice and should be taught about how they can ensure some of the things they should do to ensure the information security based on the tasks that they are performing individually. In the modern world, there's another term for that is called DevSecOps. By the way, in this course, we are not covering specific information security techniques, the technical techniques like blocking ports and so on. Those are covered in other technical courses. For example, from PeopleCert, we have the Resilia certification, which goes into not only the management areas like covered here. This is more a management course. The Resilia also covers the technical aspects of information security management in significant depth. Then we have the supplier management, which is wherein an organization has to handle its external suppliers as part of their outsourcing arrangements. Therefore, we can have relevant or related stakeholders coming in as target audience for this practice. Supplier managers and coordinators, sourcing managers, contract and procurement managers, service delivery managers who might be working with the suppliers' employees, the PMO, the project management office representatives. They might be maintaining certain common information across multiple suppliers and their services. Finance managers, they have to look at the costing, pricing for the supplier engagements. Service portfolio managers who make decisions on investments. And product managers, service owners, as always. Development team representatives who will come in to provide consultation to the supplier, the sourcing, and the contract managers, etc. from their own technical perspectives, and service level managers who may do periodic monitoring and reviews of the supplier's performance. This practice goes into the concept of sourcing strategies. What could be the various reasons to go into sourcing and various types of sourcing? Then some of the key documentations or procedures in sourcing, such as RFX, which is a general term for all these RFs that you see here, RFI, request for information, RFP, proposal, RFQ, quotation, RFB, bid, RFD, demo. What should go into a contract? And we also have the rather more modern concept of SIAM, supplier integration and management, sometimes known as service integration and management as well, wherein when an organization has multiple suppliers or too many suppliers, they might prefer to work with a single third party, and they will make that single third party accountable for the services of all the remaining suppliers. And there are 4 models of CM. Then supplier management and the service relationship journey. So how is the journey of an organization with a supplier? How does it happen? Again, it's very similar to the customer journey that I mentioned earlier, the explore, engage, offer, agree, onboard, realize, those aspects. After onboarding, they co-create value together. That's also important before the value is realized. Then integrating third-party services. It's important that third-party services are integrated with other services being delivered internally by an organization. And yeah, depending on the practice that you're interested in, I hope you are now in a position to make a decision on one or more practices that you would like to opt for. Do get in touch with us at info@oneworldtraining.com. You can visit our website and reach out to us from there also. We'd like to thank you for your interest in this, and we are there for you always on standby to meet your training, certification, and development goals and meet your career aspirations. And our best wishes to you. Thank you very much once again. And we hope to see you soon.